Welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming all along for the ride on my journey in the world of pens. I have 4 pens that I'm restoring for a fellow pen lover who's nearby. Met at a local pen meetup. This is number 3 of the set. Here's what the set started out as. I'm showing you the Sheaffer Balance here in a state just before I start my major restorations. So overall, I'd say this is an above average condition. Not a lot of discoloration in the celluloid that was used to make this Balance pen. A nice big nib. You can see the remnants of the sack is at the end of that section, so we're going to scrape that off. There was no sack inside of here, so it had previously been disassembled, so it came apart easily. The lever works nice to depress that bar. Yeah, I'm going to clean up everything. I'm not going to reset this nib. As long as it cleans out okay, I'm going to be fine with it, because somebody probably set that at one time, and I'm not going to prejudge how it might write or the flow until I get it writing in my own hand. So we're going to take another look at this after I'm ready to reassemble it and have buffed it up a little bit. So I talked about flushing and checking the flow. So I use my bulb syringe here from Radio Shack, and that's an excellent flow. Very pleased with that. This water was totally clear when I started, and there really wasn't that much ink in here, but I like to really thoroughly flush it, and then I'm going to use plain water, and then we're ready to put a sack on it. Well, the Sheaffer Balance has been cleaned up, polished, waxed. A number 18 sack has been attached. This has to be one of the best black and ivory Sheaffer Balances I've ever come across. It cleaned up extremely well. Everything looks great. The pearl essence may have been lost a little bit from the pearl chips, but it certainly has a little bit in it. And if you had nothing to compare it to, you'd probably be very happy with the way it looks. It didn't require a lot of effort to get this cleaned up. So we're going to insert the sack, ink it up, and see how the pen writes. I'm going to use my Pilot Blue Black ink, which I put into my Pen VBS Year of the Rat ink bottle. So I haven't shown a sack filler in a while, so let's use this as an example. It's always good to insert it, at least this is the first time, and see if we can catch some bubbling. Yes, we do. Love the spring back. Works well. And I always like to do a couple ink flushes. You can see there's a fair amount of ink that's being pulled up. That's good. So I do this with converters. I do this with every pen. I do 3 fills, just to make certain that the feed is fully saturated and fully flushed with ink. Do a little bit of dabby, and let's see how it writes. Just as a reference point, I thought I would compare the Sheaffer Balance, which is on the large size of balances, to the M8 and to the Pen VBS 480. All these have various types of pointiness. Sharper point, medium, more rounded. And that same shape is replicated at the top of the cap. Let's look at the sections and the nibs. One of the functions of the shape of a balance pen is that it does post. The M8 posts the least well of this group. The 480 is the best, and the Sheaffer balance is in between. Both of these, I would say, are very usable postable pens. This one is not going to stay very secure. Let's zoom in on the section and nib end. Here's where we'll see the vintage design of the Sheaffer balance. You have a very short section, but you can hold this anywhere. Those threads you really don't feel. This is a pretty big flare out here at the very end, so you know where your fingers are. The M8 is just a conical design, but very girthy and very comfortable in my hands, as well as the Sheaffer is also very comfortable. The Pen BBS 480 has a smaller section from a diameter viewpoint, but it still has a nice shape to it and is very comfortable to write with. All three of these have a very different nib in them. Pretty good size nib. I think it's now time to write with the Sheaffer. So this Sheaffer is an excellent example of a really great lifetime balance. The nib come off in a little bit over 1/2 of a turn. The threads wear a little bit on these vintage pens, but it's still capped securely, and that's the important part. This feels fine in my hand without posting it. And yes, it does post, and yes, it posts fairly securely. But, you know, I probably wouldn't write with this pen posted. And over the tripod, it doesn't work well. We'll give you the size of that section just so you can put it in perspective. We'll give you the weight of the pen, and we'll also give you the dimensions. Now let's hear that nib on paper. This nib is smooth, but it has some definite feedback to it, which to me is typical of these. It's almost a fine to an extra fine point. You can feel it on the paper. It's certainly not an objectionable feel, but it's something you need to get used to. And to me, it's typical of these large lifetime nibs. I mean, it's a nail. There's no give whatsoever. I read that these nibs were originally came about for carbon paper. You know, back in the 20s and 30s, that was quite common. And you needed a very stiff nib to be able to push through and put the image through to all the different copies. But I think this is an excellent example of this type of nib and this type of pen. Hopefully the new owner will be very happy with the pen. I'm happy with the restoration. So we've reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching. There is one more pen in the series to be done, and that's the Parker Dual Fold, and it's going to probably be a little bit more of an effort than this one to restore, but I'll take my time. To quote a fellow pen reviewer, do no harm. And hopefully we'll get it into as good a writing condition as this pen is. That to me is the whole joy of doing restorations, of taking these incredibly fine vintage writing instruments and bringing them back to life, and having the new owner be very happy with now usable and functionable instrument. So hopefully you all stay safe, healthy, and happy. Put some ink on paper. Share your thoughts. We've reached the end of this video. Look forward to more in the future. And we'll say bye for now. It writes nice.